The Cubs want a player, the Dodgers end up with him. How upset are you? Let's talk about it.
You are Locked On Cubs, your daily Chicago Cubs podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are Locked On Cubs, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm Sam Olber. I'm a lifelong fan, taking my passion into a discussion with you on all things Cubs. Thank you for being part of the show and making Locked On Cubs your first listen today. And the best way you can help us grow the show is to listen every day, like the video, and comment anything below. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. I know this is not a Dodgers show. We're not going to spend a ton of time on this, but I think it's the most relevant story right now. In the last 5 days, the Cubs saw their top hopeful. I don't think any of us thought they had much of a chance at the first two guys, Roki Sasaki and Tanner Scott, both go to the Dodgers, and Kirby Yates seems to be headed there as well. And there's just been a lot of rhetoric, a lot of talk about the Dodgers, and as it relates to the Cubs, I think it's important to have this conversation and give my take on it. So, as usual, I would love to get a T-shirt that says Sam Olber. Two things can be true, because I feel like every time I'm solo, I start the show by saying, hey, two things can be true, because oftentimes in the social media realm, it's one extreme or the other with sports stuff like this type of thing, because, it's, hey, the Dodgers are the only team that cares about winning, and the Cubs, don't spend enough, and whatever it is. And it's like, both sides can be true. Like the Cubs, we've talked about it a lot. I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on it. Ken Rosenthal even doubled down today on foul territory and called out Cubs ownership again. The Cubs need to spend more money. Okay. Or I guess that's not the right way to say it. We want the Cubs to spend more money, and we feel like they should as fans. And, when the owner of the team comes out at Cubs convention and talks about the bottom line and all those things that just didn't feel like the right thing to say, it becomes even more, I would use the word, infuriating, right? And you feel like they could spend more. And the rest of the league beyond the Cubs could spend more money. I think it's not good for baseball that Alex Bregman and Jack Flaherty are still free agents, and they're in these staring contests, and it's not right. However, I do think that it's also not completely right to say, hey, the Dodgers are the only team that care. The Dodgers are the only team that spends money. The Dodgers are the only team that wants to win. And I think that's really the purpose of this segment. The purpose of this segment is to just express kind of my take on it. So my take is absolutely the Cubs should be spending more money and not have this hard cap at the first luxury tax threshold. And, teams like the Pirates could probably do more. So it's more active, and the offseason is more active, and players don't have to wait so long. But I also think the Dodgers have this unbelievable advantage, really a couple of them that they're taking full advantage of. And the first one is this TV deal that they have. And look, I don't want to get into the details of it, but like when you read about it, the Dodgers made a phenomenal business deal. And yes, they got a little bit lucky, as I think most people that have tons of success in business will tell you, sometimes you need to get a little bit lucky with timing. And they made this deal that is not subscription dependent. It's not viewer dependent. It's a done deal. It's like a contract. No matter what, they're guaranteed this money, and it's like $330+ million a year that they get. And then you say that that's enough, but we're in this cord cutting world, as Jed likes to say, where people are, taking away their cable and doing all these streaming things. So the rest of baseball is being hurt, and the Dodgers are totally unaffected. I think the second best TV deal is the Yankees, and that's like, in the upper hundreds with the Yes Network. So it's a huge advantage, and I could promise you that if the Cubs were getting $330 million a year, it would feel like they care about winning a whole lot too from their TV department. So I think a lot of it is, and then you have the destination part, with Los Angeles that really helps with the Japanese players, right? You just go one flight to LA, it's done, it's easy. And that's how they got Ohtani and Sasaki. And, that's a part of it as well. But I don't like the idea of, hey, just because the Cubs and other teams aren't spending enough, and that feels like a fact at this point, it doesn't mean that, oh, the Dodgers just care so much more than everybody else. The Dodgers made a great business deal, and they're taking full advantage of it. And look, the Dodgers, this spending spree that they're on is only really accumulated the last few years. They were, a pretty normal spending team, and they still were making World Series in 2017, 2018 because they're a very well-run organization. Andrew Friedman's one of the best executives to ever do it. Combine him with an unlimited budget, and here you have this monster. But it's just, I think a lot of other teams would be spending. I don't think the Cubs would have tapped out on Juan Soto and Corbin Burns as early as they did if they were getting the TV money that the Dodgers were getting. And of course, the deferred stuff, that's a bit eye rolling too. Like, I have no idea. We have no idea how that's going to, play out. But, I guess my first initial point with this segment, and I'll wrap it up soon because I know this isn't really Cubs news, is that I think two things can be true. The Cubs on big market teams should have a little bit more spending and go for it a little bit more. But also, it doesn't just mean that the Dodgers just care that much more. The Dodgers are taking advantage of a very smart, fortunate situation that is helping them a ton in this cord-cutting TV era. And the last point I want to make as far as the Cubs go with this is, I have actually two more points, is that, now it's how do the Cubs react to this? And there's two sides. And again, it's always you land in the middle. One side is, well, hey, the Dodgers are so great. So why should the Cubs even try next year? Maybe they can go get some more prospects or sell off guys. And then the other side is, hey, the Dodgers are so great. We need to go trade all of our prospect capital and go get some stars so we can match with them. And neither one is the right solution. They're both too extreme. It's somewhere in the middle. You do not tank a season. You do not say, oh, well, the Dodgers are really good, we have no chance, especially in the game of baseball. This Cubs team could win the division. They could get hot at the right time, meet the Dodgers in a best of 5, and we see what happens. I know that's not what we all want to hear. Trust me. I just did a payroll episode last week. I wish we could say, hey, let's go toe-to-toe with those guys and be favorites on paper, but that's just not realistic. But that doesn't mean you just give away the season. It's not basketball. It's not like you're playing a 7-game series against these guys, like against the 17 Warriors. They could be beaten. They could be had. It's baseball. They're going to, as great as they are, they're still going to lose, 50 plus games, right? So, there's that side. But of course, you don't go the other side and go, oh no, we have to compete with the Dodgers, so we got to trade Owen Casey and Cade Horton tomorrow. You don't do that either. You build a team that's what's best for your present and future. You could win this division. You're on paper favorites to win this division. I don't think it's clear cut right now. We've said that a lot of times. But you do the best you can, and you win this division. You see what happens. You get hot at the right time, but you don't overreact one way or another. And the last point I want to make is that I think us as Cub fans also have a little bit of envy for the Dodgers, because I remember in 2016, guys, I thought we were going to be the Dodgers. I thought the Cubs were going to take over the league. We won our first World Series. And I know I say we like I'm on the team. I love the team. Just that's how it is, okay? Chris Bryant, Anthony Rizzo, Javier Baez, World Series, newly renovated Wrigley Field, the neighborhood, everything around there, newly fixed up. It felt like the Cubs were a machine in the making. And I think, and again, this is all speculation, I have no inside info on this, I think Tom Ricketts thought that as well. And that's why the Marquee Network stuff started when the Cubs knew their contract was expiring with their current TV situation, because he thought, hey, Marquee's going to be a monster. We're going to be great for the next 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years. We're going to have all these guys. Fans are in love with these guys. We're going to be unstoppable, and everybody's going to buy Marquee Network. We're going to be the talk of the town. and it just didn't work out. We all know the story, right? The core guys didn't end up being what we thought they were going to be. After 2018, the Cubs really started to dip, and they weren't the team we thought they were going to be. And then the year they launched Marquee, COVID hits like a month or two right before that was going to start, and everything went there. So again, I'm not making any excuses for ownership. You guys know me better than that. But I'm just saying, I think, this Dodger thing, they got really lucky, and the Cubs were really close. They were in a position, it reminds me, a little bit, for the football fans, like the 85 Bears in a sense, right? Like after 85, why didn't the Bears win again in 86, 87? Well, McMahon gets hurt in 86 and Doug Flutie plays, and that doesn't work out. They lose to Washington back-to-back years. And then some of the guys started aging. They lost Buddy Ryan after 85, whatever it was. And all of a sudden that one team just became a one team instead of a monster. But in the NFL, it doesn't affect every other part of your business, right? And with the Cubs, I think if that went the way we thought it would, who knows where the Cubs would be right now. So it's frustrating, but things are going to change in a couple of years. I really do believe that. And I still think that this team's in a good position, and it could be a lot worse. Even Jed said, we're going to talk about his interview with Kap in a little while, but even Jed said, I also have a nice rant about this whole Dodgers thing at the end of this episode, because there is a part of it there is a part of it I'm a little tired of. But even Jed said when he was on with Kap, like the Cubs are actually, you can make the case they benefit from all the cord cutting and stuff because it doesn't hurt them as much as it hurts other teams. People still watch the Cubs as much, but it's a very nuanced conversation, and I just think that ownerships, across the MLB should be spending more, but let's not pretend the Dodgers are just the only team that want to win. They got a great situation. They're taking advantage of it. And, I don't think the Cubs were ever going to be in their situation in terms of the TV deal, but, if things bounced another way, you get lucky here and there with Bryant or Rizzo being better, who knows where the Cubs would be, and they can get there again. So, win the division in 2025, and let's see what happens. Coming up next, we have some news and notes, a couple of rumors, a couple of CubsCon things I want to get to, and we're going to talk about that coming up next. This episode is brought to you by Game Time. Whether it's a Cubs game, a comedy show, or a concert, I love going to live events. And now Game Time has a new feature called Game Time Picks that makes getting tickets for your favorite live events even easier. Game Time Picks filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste your time searching through thousands of tickets. With killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seat, and their lowest price guarantee, Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying MLB tickets. The experience of searching for and then buying tickets on Game Time is simple. Plus, Game Time is the only ticketing app that gives you complete peace of mind with your purchase. See the view from your seat before you buy, so you know exactly what to expect when you arrive. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Terms do apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. What time is it? It's game time. We are back here on Locked On Cubs, and I want to get to a couple news and note items for the day. Sahadev Sharma and Patrick Mooney in The Athletic mentioned on Wednesday afternoon, it was more like Wednesday morning, that the Cubs could be one of the candidates to trade for Astros setup man, former closer Ryan Pressly. I've mentioned Pressly on this show before. I have some familiarity with him. He was on my fantasy team last year, so I watched him a whole bunch. It was not a great year for him. The numbers look a little bit better than it was. There was a lot of traffic on the bases. The whip was pretty high. And he's making $14 million next year. I would just prefer to spend that money on one of the free agents. I think Jansen's a better fit. I even would say I prefer Robertson over Pressly. I think those two for sure. Robertson seems like most people's favorite for the Cubs out of those remaining guys because he's got the best peripherals, best projections. I just lean Jansen because of the experience factor. He's 3 years younger, and he's actually been pretty consistent the last 3 years. It's not the level that he was at when he was, a Hall of Fame closer, which is what he will be. but he's still really good. And then you add in the experience, the highest of high leverage. Maybe he could help. Matt talked about this with me. Maybe he could help a Porter Hodge. Maybe he can help a Luke Little. Maybe he can help a Ben Brown in those situations. So I would lean. I think Jansen might be even a little cheaper. I would lean Jansen, then Robertson, and then you could, maybe talk me into Presley after that. I probably like Presley a little bit better than the Finnegans of the world. Estevez, I'm mixed about his projections as Matt's talked about aren't great, and his underlying numbers weren't great. So I would like to see Jansen or Robertson probably over Presley and Estevez. So we'll see what happens. It feels like any day now that's gonna happen for the Cubs. One of those free agents or a trade or something like that, unless the Cubs have something bigger cooking, like a big trade. But we'll see. A couple other things I wanted to get to, news and notes. David Kaplan, who was on our show, did a couple massive interviews last week. One with Tom Ricketts that dropped, I think it was Friday, and then one with Jed Hoyer just a little bit before that. The one with Tom Ricketts he did with Ryan McGuffey. Both were really good interviews, but I really got a lot from the Jed sit down, and I highly recommend giving that a listen. Just the big highlight I just want to mention, speaking of the first segment, talking about ownership and things like that. I could be wrong on this, but I think for the first time, Jed publicly came out and was talking about his biggest regrets since he's been in charge. And he talked about non-tendering Kyle Schwarber. And, there was baseball reasoning to it as well. And Jed talked about, hey, they lost patience with him. And, if he was producing, they wouldn't have non-tendered him. But he cited, basically, almost verbatim that the Cubs didn't have any money. And, post-COVID, he had to cut payroll. And that was the move that they chose to do. And, again, I don't think Kyle Schwarber gets non-tendered if he was producing at the time. But I also think if COVID doesn't happen, or if the Cubs were in a better position financially, or, if Tom Ricketts just said, no, like we're not non-tendering this guy, Kyle Schwarber, that we love and think could be great, we'll figure something else, or we'll just eat the cost. Kyle Schwarber would have still been a Cub, and his career since he's left the Cubs is very similar to what I think Jed and Theo and all of us thought it would be. So I just thought that was really revealing, and I couldn't believe he actually said, "Hey, we had no money," and that was really big. It was a really good sit down, really revealing, really informative. It's hard not to appreciate and at least really respect Jed in this type of interview, because he's really forthcoming and candid and direct. And Cap, you guys know how I feel about Cap as he was on our show. And the last thing I want to address, news and notes, I know I'm a little bit all over the place, was another convention thing. If you haven't had a chance, Ian Happ, who is really good in the media space, did a panel or a live podcast on his show, The Compound, with Sammy Sosa at the convention. Matt and I were listening to it. It was just brilliant. It really was well done. I think Ian Happ's such a great example of a guy who, like, you watch him play, you watch him do media, like post game, you're like, all right, seems like just kind of like a pretty straightforward guy, whatever. But if you actually listen to him on his show, he's really an outgoing guy, and he's really, really intelligent. And my favorite part of the podcast with Sosa was how Ian talked about, how basically front offices look at RBIs like random and luck. And he said, no, they're not random. It's not lucky. Driving in runs is a skill. You get pitched different in those situations. It's harder. You have a job to do. And you guys know me. I was literally, you could ask Matt, clapping in the back of the ballroom, cheering when he was talking about how RBIs are not random and how it's a skill, and you got to drive in runs. You got to go for it, because I can't stand that. Oh yeah, it's just unlucky that he got all his hits with nobody on and didn't deliver with runners on. It's a way different type of situation. Your heart rate's faster. The pitcher's going to deliver his best stuff. He's not going to come at you with his best, not best stuff, but his control. He's going to try and, be out of the zone. He's going to nibble a little bit. And you got to find a way to go the other way, bring that run in. And I was so happy to hear him say that. And then of course, Sosa was just great. I mean, he's made for those type of podcasts, those type of media sessions. He told a bunch of great stories. I don't want to spoil it all, but that was really, really cool. So check those out. Some really good stuff the last couple of weeks, content wise. Like I said, Ricketts, Jed, and then the stuff at Cubs Con. Coming up next, we are going to talk about the Hall of Fame, best and worst, and maybe a little football nugget. This episode is brought to you by Select Quote. In sports, having a winning strategy is everything. It's how the best teams make it to the Super Bowl, the World Series, and the Olympics. The same goes for life. Having a strategy like life insurance from Select Quote can protect your financial legacy and keep your family's future secure. Select Quote makes it easy to find the perfect life insurance policy. As one of America's leading insurance brokers with nearly 40 years of experience, they've helped over 2 million customers find $700 billion in coverage since 1985. Good year for the Bears. What sets Select Quote apart is their personal touch. Unlike other brokers that offer one-size-fits-all policies, their licensed agents tailor coverage to fit your unique needs. If you're good in health, you might even qualify for same-day coverage up to $5 million. No medical exam required. And it's more affordable than you'd think. You can get up to $1 million in coverage for as little as $20 a month. Get the right life insurance for you for less at selectquote.com/lockedon. Go to selectquote.com/lockedon today to get started. That's selectquote.com/lockedon. Select Quote. They shop, you save. We are back here on Locked On Cubs, and it's time for best and worst of the week. And there's a little Cubs twist to my Bears best. And of course, best of the week was the Bears hired Ben Johnson, but on Wednesday, Ben Johnson had his press conference, and he cited one of the reasons he fell in love with Chicago was going to Cub games and going to Wrigley Field. And rant incoming, it reminded me of my pitch to Shohei Ohtani last year, and that is this. You can go to the Dodgers, and I get it. Guys like Tanner Scott, Kirby Yates, relievers, you got to go where the money is. So I'm not criticizing anybody for that, but I'm talking about the free agents. I'm talking about the superstars that are, could go anywhere they want. The best place to be a star is Chicago. Ben Johnson talked about how he thinks the Bears are a sleeping giant, and I love that because if you can win here, it becomes a monster. I mean, think about how much we view the 85 Bears. They won once. Think about the 16 Cubs, that 15, 16, 17, 18, 19. We look at that as the golden age. They only won one championship and they didn't even make multiple World Series, but we're so hungry for a winner. And we're also a big market. So it goes hand in hand. You still get that big market exposure when you come to Chicago. The best fans in the world, and we'll appreciate, like Kyle Tucker. If he has like a 920 OPS this year, which is obviously a great year, but we're not asking for something that he's not capable of. He'll be the best athlete in this city, and he'll be treated like it, right? This city knows how to treat stars. It's the best fan base in sports, in my opinion. Cubs, whatever it is, they're loyal, but you also get that big market feel. The Dodgers, they leave after the fourth inning, or they arrive in the fourth inning, they leave in the seventh. Outside of Ohtani, like if Tyler Glasnow were to go into a local restaurant with Austin Reeves, I bet you Austin Reeves on the Lakers would get noticed more than Glasnow. That's a Lakers town. It's not a baseball town. It's not like the Cubs, okay? Think about Chicago. Think about it like this. If Michael Jordan got drafted by the Lakers or Celtics, or heck, if Michael Jordan did what they do today and just got tired of losing to the Pistons in the late 80s and just said, all right, I'm just going to partner up with Magic, and he was on the Lakers, do you think he would be as revered as he is? No. One of the reasons he's revered is because he did it in Chicago, a big market that loves basketball, but never saw a winner, never saw anything close to what Michael was able to provide this city. This is the best place to be a star. So if you're an athlete, you're listening to this and you're a special player, I know you got to go where the money is. But if the Cubs offer something close, come here. You won't regret it. There's nothing like being a star. There's nothing like Wrigley Field. It truly is different here. We just got to get the money to catch up and be able to spend. Tom, please. Just my rant, okay? Because that Ben Johnson, it reminded me exactly that. Like when he called the Bears a sleeping giant, it's because if Ben Johnson wins in Chicago, he's a hero. He wins one Super Bowl and takes them to like 3 straight NFC North titles. The guy's going to have a statue outside the stadium. You go win another World Series with the Dodgers, you're just another guy that helped the Dodgers, but you win here, it's different. My worst of the week's the Hall of Fame. Ichiro Suzuki somehow wasn't unanimous, but really, I just don't care that much about the Hall of Fame anymore. I just don't. I've talked about this. I think I went on a rant. When did Scott Rowland get elected? Was that 2 years ago on this show? It's just hard to take the Hall of Fame seriously now. There's too many guys that should be in it that aren't. You guys know how I feel. I know it's somewhat of a controversial opinion. I just think if the best hitter that I've ever seen in my entire life isn't in the Hall of Fame with Barry Bonds, I can't take it that seriously. I have no idea how Ichiro wasn't unanimous. I'm happy for CC Sabathia, though. He seems like a great guy, and I'm glad that he got in. Billy Wagner also got in. Those guys, well deserved. All three of those guys. My worst of the week is I really used to care about that. Like I used to get really riled up and whatever. And now it just doesn't really do much for me like it used to. But that's it. A lot on this show. Dodgers, look, great for them. Congrats on their TV deal. Great for spending. We still have a job to do. Put out the best team possible. Tom, let's see if we can just get to like 240 million. Okay, I don't think I'm asking too much. That'll make this team, as I said on yesterday's show, if they start opening day at like 230, they will be one of the favorites to win. They will be the clear favorite to win this NL Central, because that means they got like 30 plus million to spend on guys. Let's go win this division. I'd like to pass on Ryan Presley if possible. So hope you guys enjoyed that. Thank you so much for checking out this edition of Locked On Cubs. You give us 20 to 30 minutes, and we'll give you all things Cubs with a laugh or two along the way. Be sure to hit subscribe on YouTube, smash the like button for the algorithm, and leave a 5-star review on Apple, Spotify, and everywhere you get your podcasts. I'm Sam Olber, and this is Locked On Cubs. Stay warm, everybody.